Way you go.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our special council meeting of Tuesday, August 25th, 2026. I will now call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Administrative and procedural issues for today. 2.1 is approval of the agenda. The recommended motion is that the agenda be approved as presented. If we could raise our hands for today. Moved by Councillor Lockhart, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gould. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. 2.2, I will direct your attention to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and as you were required to declare a conflict of interest prior to any discussion on the matter. 3, organizational policy and bylaw items. 3.1 is first reading of the bylaw to amend the LUB 26-11, temporary pause on accepting AI data center development permit applications. Mr. Harrett, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. The actual item for Council's consideration is pretty brief. I just want to take a couple of minutes, though, to reiterate, explain, and emphasize the reason for today's meeting and the reasoning behind it being a virtual meeting and the time that was selected. Because there are lots of conversations out there, even some amongst members of Council about exactly what we're doing. And I think it's important that members of the public understand that too. So today is the very first meeting. Today's meeting is the very first in the process of Council considering putting regulations in place to specific to AI data centers. The only purpose of the bylaw amendment that's before you today is to implement a pause for 6 months for receiving and processing and potential applications for development permits related to these facilities, while staff and the consultants who are working on our comprehensive land use bylaw and municipal planning strategy review do the work they need to bring these regulations forward. As most of you know, as the folks on Council would know, and perhaps members of the public don't, the process today after first reading, there will be if Council is so inclined to approve the motion that's before you, the first reading and notice of intent will be approved, and then we'll proceed to schedule a public hearing in the Council chambers in Upper Nepean sometime in September, where members of the public will be welcomed to come and take part in a public hearing and provide and share their opinions and their concerns with Council and members of the public. After that public hearing, there would be another period, a few days or a few weeks, and Council would then consider second reading of the bylaw. If that second reading were approved, then the moratorium would be in place. The pause on accepting applications, which is a moratorium, would be in place for 6 months while this work goes on in the background. After today's first reading, if Council approves first reading today, staff and the municipality will be precluded from accepting and processing any applications for a development permit relative to these sorts of facilities. Hopefully those comments give folks some comfort in terms of what's going on and what the process is. Today is just about the pause, just about the moratorium. There is more work to do, and it will be ongoing as part of the larger review that's been going on now for about a year. And when those regulations come forward as part of the bigger package, again, there will be a separate process where there will be a first reading like today, although it will take much, much longer because it'll be a much larger document. Those documents will be available to the public. There will be another public hearing, at least one, for folks to be able to express their opinions and understand the issues. And then Council again will go through second reading and final approval. We're proposing to put a 6-month pause on accepting these applications. If the larger work, the wider work on the land use bylaw and the municipal planning strategy, for some reason takes longer than 6 months, council at the time can reconvene and consider whether another 6-month extension to this moratorium or pause is appropriate. Our legal counsel has advised us that in situations like these, that process is a reasonable one, and reasonability is key in ensuring that we do this right, and that we do this with all due regard for process. Some conversation about having this meeting online rather than in person. So 2 things to say about that. This is notice of intent, first reading. Again, as I described, there are 2 more steps in this process alone. This, if it weren't for me talking forever, this would be an exceedingly short meeting because there's just 1 item. So the decision was taken to have it virtually rather than have 9 members council drive in from all parts of the municipality for a 20-minute meeting. That was the first consideration. The second consideration is one of timeliness. Once council approved first reading, if they do, then we are precluded from processing these sorts of applications if they come. So it was incumbent upon us to have this meeting as early on the calendar as we could, so that more pages didn't flip on the calendar and more opportunities for these sorts of applications to be received would occur. Really clearly, though, I'm just about done. Really clearly, we at this point are not in receipt of any sorts of inquiries. We are not aware of potential applications. Our staff are not engaged with anyone kicking the tires about an application. This is simply a proactive action by this council based on the fact that there are concerns in the community about these sorts of facilities, and council wanted to get ahead of the issue. So with that as a background, I don't think I forgot anything. With that as a background, the item before you is a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw. As I stated earlier, members of council are hearing a significant degree of community-based concern regarding potential development of AI data centers, and wish to complete the ongoing comprehensive review of the MPS and LUB before potentially having to consider any such application. So creating some space and time to get the regulations in place before any potential applications come forward. Back in June seems like so long ago. Back in June, council directed staff to provide information on the mechanics of implementing a moratorium on accepting applications for AI data centers. Those of you who are on council, the previous council will recall the process we followed to put in place a moratorium on wind turbine development while council considered the setback requirements and related regulations relative to wind turbine development. This process is very similar to that process. In fact, it's exactly the same. Change the names, it's exactly the same. Now, in terms of any financial implications to making this decision, at this point there aren't any identified. I suppose for the sake of completeness, we should say that putting the moratorium or the pause in place perhaps has a potential negative impact on future revenues. It's undefined, but for the sake of completeness, we're just identifying that. The couple of alternatives, council, you can proceed with first reading of the attached bylaw, which I'll read here before we're done. And once the first reading has been given, no development permit may be issued in the face of the pending changes. That's number one, and that's the recommended solution. So that's what staff are recommending. Alternatively, you could allow the NPS LUB review to proceed without enacting a short-term moratorium. Planning staff do indicate that they believe that the NPS and LUB presently likely don't permit the issue of a development permit, but that's not a known quantity. Council could allow that development to proceed within the existing provisions of the LUB. As I said, the recommended action is to pass first reading of the bylaw. The bylaw is at page 7 of your council package. For those of you who are following, and it's a very short 2-paragraph bylaw, bylaw 2611, bylaw to amend the land use bylaw. The first line is just the title and the citation. The second is the actual meat of it. For a period of 6 months, commencing on council approving first reading of the bylaw, no development permit applications will be received for AI data centers while the municipality completes its comprehensive review of the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw. Upon motion by council where additional time is deemed necessary to complete the review, this review period may be extended one time by a further period of up to 6 months, and any applications received following the expiry of the review period shall be processed in accordance with the requirements in force at the time. It's important to realize or to understand that the process has to be reasonable. It has to stand that test of reasonableness. Approving this bylaw, that first and second reading, does not prohibit forever the development or the issuing development permits for AI data centers. Rather, it provides time and gives pause to that activity to give council and staff the opportunity to develop the regulations. All of those processes are subject to public input. They'll be done in a public forum. There will be public hearings, but this one is simply about the pause. So the motion, Your Worship, that is before council is a very simple one. And it is that the council approve first reading of bylaw 2611, the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw, and further that staff be directed to schedule a public hearing. I'm happy to answer or try to answer any questions that council might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrod. Before I move on to the moving of the motion and whatever, I believe Councillor Redmond would like to say something. So go ahead, Councillor Redmond.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Greg for taking the time to explain the process. It's been very confusing for constituents, and they've been concerned about us having a Zoom meeting. And I think the explanation that the CAO gave was most appropriate, and I thank him very much for taking the time to do that. And hopefully it eases a lot of minds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Redmond.
Thank you.
The recommended motion is that council approve first reading of bylaw 26-11, the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw. Further, that staff be directed to schedule a public hearing. If someone be so kind as to make the motion. Moved by Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Hotelling. Any comments or discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Hotelling.
Thank you, Mayor Gilroy. So I just have a few things to say, and apologies if it seems a little choppy. Lots of people have been weighing in this morning, but I did want to share comments and concerns that I have been asked to, just to make sure that it's on the record and recorded here today. So first of all, I just want to say that I did write this without AI. I was trying out AI for some time and admit it can be useful, but there was always something missing, an authentic tone that comes from real humans who are not perfect. And I like that. It makes me feel more connected to the work I do, and it makes me actually use my brain. I am not saying I will never use it. I just want to be clear that I am now more than ever paying close attention to how and why and the risks associated with it. It actually feels like we are being forced into using it. I try my best to delete the options on all platforms now, but it keeps popping up. I understand tech is here and we don't seem to have a choice in using it if we are going to be online. But just for the record, I was okay with Google prior to AI. I think it may be better to take the time to research properly and contemplate rather than grabbing a quick answer that may or not be truthful. And I make all my posts, business signage, and content using my own creativity now. Call me old-fashioned, but I think it may be best for us as a whole to just close the computer and put down the phone and go outside more often. Maybe then we wouldn't need more data centers. Could it be that simple? So here's some things that constituents have shared with me. There is an urgency to this I am noticing. I've read things like we need to be the leaders in data center development, and if we get on board early, we'll have a windfall of tax dollars and jobs. This rush to sign up leaves little room for research and data collection on what the ripple effect will be for our residents and the environment. I believe this moratorium should be in place as long as it takes to make an informed decision. Some are comparing Nova Scotia to Alberta. Here in Nova Scotia, when you sneeze, the farmer next door catches your cold. Everything is too close together to have space for this type of industry and the resources it consumes. There has been a severe lack of water during summer months in Cumberland. Over the 20 years I have lived in Pugwash, my own well has gone dry several times, and I have many residents who have this same concern. In places like Ireland and New South Wales, they are requiring tech companies to power their data centers with renewable energy and to provide that renewable energy themselves, adding to the supply. Government regulations could force tech companies to provide and pay for enormous new quantities of renewable energy. And I'm talking about actual renewable energy, not biomass or natural gas, but perhaps geothermal, which Cumberland has spent years researching in Spring Hill, and part of the regulations for a data center could be providing a community with renewable energy as well as their own. Some questions. Will council have a report on impacts to communities that already have data centers? Will an application to build a data center come to council if there is no moratorium? Where is all this data being used? Is it really Canadians who need this much capacity? Are we able to find this out? Or can we put something in place that will allow the data center to only supply data we need here in Nova Scotia? Some have cited to me that we need this because of all our banking services, etc., that have gone online. My understanding is that these are specifically for AI data, but it would be good to know exactly what that means. I have been using online banking for some time, and there was not this urgent need for data centers. I will do my own research and find experts who I can ask without a financial tie to these projects to get an unbiased opinion. There are so many questions at this point that we need to know the answers to. Perhaps there's a benefit that outweighs the costs and risks of this. But I admit I don't know enough about it yet, and so I will be voting for the moratorium until we have a better understanding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor O'Telling. Anyone else have anything to say? Raise your hand. Mr. Herrick, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to check in to see whether those questions that Councillor Hotelling posed were rhetorical or if she was looking for an answer.
Thank you. I don't expect an answer today. I just wanted to put those in wanted to plant a seed.
But so thank you for that, Your Worship, to Councillor Hotelling. I would expect that when regulations come to council, so those things won't be part of this proceeding because this is simply about a pause. But when the actual regulations come forward, the changes to the land use bylaw that address this, those are reasonable questions to ask of the consultants and of planning staff, and council at the time can work their way through, you know, what answers you can get to those questions. But really quickly, I would think that impacts on communities and impacts on properties and that are near these developments are kind of sort of what the planning process is all about. So I would expect that there would be information provided on that, Counselor. You had asked, again, maybe rhetorically, without this moratorium, would would the municipality be accepting applications? I think the answer to that is yeah, they would work their way through the process. It doesn't mean they would necessarily be approved or that they would be approved as of right, or they would work their way through the process. So all of those things are questions that members of council and the public can ask when the actual regulations come forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart. Councilor O'Talley, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to be clear, it was specifically whether the development agreement comes to council if there's no moratorium, like, is it just through staff or does it come to council for approval?
Right. So thank Your Worship. Yeah. So if there's a if the development is by development agreement, certainly it does come to council. Planning staff advised that as I said in my earlier remarks, they believe that the current land use bylaw municipal planning strategy probably does not permit the development of these facilities as it is currently written. I'll interpret that as it's certainly not as of right in any zone at this point in time. So if that's the case, that would come before council. I just do not foresee, careful because I won't be the CAO much longer, but I do not foresee an approval for an AI data center happening anytime soon at the staff level without council involvement, particularly in the face of bringing forward this pause and going through the process. So even if the pause today wasn't successful. So,
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart. Anyone else have a comment?
welcome.
Seeing none, I'll ask for the call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Contrary minded? Seeing none, the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, folks. And if I could have a motion to adjourn, that would be good. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gould. We are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your participation today and your input. Oh, Councilor Redmond, did you?